You are listening to episode 71 of the Style and Stewardship podcast. On this episode, we're getting into how your sleep affects you, how breakfast affects you, and the different things that many of us become deficient in because we are not fueling ourselves properly. Stay tuned for this episode. I give you a lot of practical tips on what you can do, what you can audit about your lifestyle so that you can really support your own wellness, become a student of your own body so that you learn what affects it and how you feel best. So let's get into this episode. Before we get into this episode, I definitely want to just go ahead and do a medical disclaimer. Nothing that I share on this podcast or on this particular episode is to treat, cure, or diagnose any medical condition. Please take all of those concerns that you may have to your doctor. I am not an expert. I am not a doctor. I am just someone who is sharing things for informational purposes only. So please consult your doctor. You're listening to the Style and Stewardship podcast. So what is stewardship? That is exactly what we'll be talking about in each and every episode of this podcast. As Christ followers, I think it's so important that we manage every single area of our lives to the best of our ability. Not perfectly, but intentionally in our own unique way, and holding on to God's grace every single step of our journey. On this podcast, I'll be sharing thoughts, things that God's teaching me, and transparent talks. My hope is that when you listen, you'll feel equipped, you'll be encouraged, and more than anything, I hope that you're inspired to live out your day-to-day calling in your own unique way. This podcast is for the woman who wants to hear, "Well done." I have learned over the years that you have to truly become a student of your own body. And when I say that, I mean you have to get to a place where you realize that when you eat certain things, or when you're in certain environments, or when you use certain products, that your body tells a story, and your body gives you a myriad of clues of, it can be digestive issues, it can be, migraines, it can be tension headaches, it can be blurred vision, ringing in your ears, it can be skin issues, it can be energy issues, lethargy, like you just feel like you cannot get out of bed, and no matter how much you sleep or how much you lay down, you feel like it is never enough. Our body gives us so many clues, the cravings that we have. So I say this to say all of us have cues that our body is sending us where it needs something. Sometimes that we need to omit something and remove something, and sometimes we need to add something. That can be a lifestyle change, that can be a dietary modification, that can be a certain type of rest that we need. And in order to get that rest, it may be omitting, doing certain things before you go to bed, or eating certain things before you go to bed. I can definitely relate to that last one. So when we are becoming students of our bodies, we can pick up a lot of different diets that are out there. We can pick up a lot of different, people saying, you should try this diet, or you should try that diet. And the interesting thing is, I would say, yes, try some of these diets. I don't mean go on, quote unquote, a diet, but if there is something where you feel like, hey, I'm not getting enough, I feel like I never have energy, it may be extremely beneficial for you to do something like adding more vegetables to your plate, cooked vegetables, or adding, some other things to your diet that you may not be getting right now. And it also may mean omitting certain things to just see how you feel without having that thing. I think elimination diets are incredibly powerful because they can really paint the picture of what your body thrives on and what your body is hindered by. This, if you are listening to your body, if you're watching your body as far as how you feel and your symptoms, your energy levels, and all of those things, even how well you're able to concentrate, can be a really, really strong sign of not just diet but lifestyle. So if you are under a bunch of stress, your body actually needs more nutritional support. We burn through minerals when we are under a lot of stress. Specifically, magnesium is one of those. So it might mean, supplementing with what you are probably losing a lot of, and you may not even realize it. So I know I spoke about this on that hydration episode because I use REDMOND real salt and I put that in my water, and I explained why, because you want your body to be hydrated on a cellular level, and you want to be replenishing what your body is losing throughout the day, especially if you're doing things like having any sort of diuretic, which flushes your system, of water, which is, things like tea, coffee. Those things are natural diuretics, so they're going to flush your body. So we want to make sure that we're not just drinking water, but we're actually hydrating. Spoke about on that episode, and that's something that affects us all. When we talk about managing our blood sugar and how our body is utilizing glucose and the spikes and peaks and crazy drops that we may have if we're not fueling our bodies right and if we're not eating balanced. So we're not just going around and eating nothing but carbs, or we're sitting down to something that's nothing but sugar, or we're sitting down to something that our body is going to digest in our mouths, and it really doesn't have to do anything else to break that food down. Therefore, it's in and out of your system very quickly. So all of those things have a huge determinant. They're just huge determining factors as far as how we're going to feel, how our energy is going to last or not last throughout the hours of the day, and then the different demands that, just come with life, with, being a parent, being a spouse, being a student, being a teacher, being a worker, being an employee, being a manager. All of the different hats that we wear, they require energy. They require some sort of output. And our body is very interesting because we can go for quite some time before we get to a place that, oh my goodness, my body, I can't do this anymore, where we feel like we have come to the end of our rope. And it can show up in so many different ways. It can show up in the level of stress that we're able to take on, because here's the thing: we all face stressors. Our body faces them environmentally, dietary wise. Our body is under stress sometimes. But mentally and emotionally and physically, we are under different stressors as well, depending on what our lifestyle, what season of life we may be in. And that is true for all of us. And our bodies can handle that stress if it is given the right tools. So when we talk about wellness and health, it is not just the food that we eat. It is not just the water that we drink and being hydrated. It is not just if we're taking a supplement. It is not if we're exercising. It's all of those things. So as overwhelming as that can sound, if we're slowly approaching doing the base foundation principles first, and that really is making sure that we're eating enough, eating balanced, sleeping throughout the night, sleeping in a deep sleep, and there are tools for all of these different things. So right now it would be looking at your life and saying, where am I right now in my life? What's going on? If you are, and I just want to give you a couple of tools and a couple of things to think about and to implement as you are looking at your life and looking at the story of what your life is telling you right now. If you are in a really busy season right now, the last thing that you need to do is to do 50 new things. Seriously. We like to do these whole overhaul things, and I think that we can really set ourselves up for failure for many, many reasons. One of them being we don't know what works if we're trying everything at the same time. We don't know what doesn't work if we are not trying anything. So we need the feedback of, really trying to support our bodies through our lifestyle, through our diet and things like that. I'm going to use really, really simple examples, and you can look at your own life and see if there are any areas that you need extra support or that you could just be doing things differently. Sometimes it is as simple as that. So the first one I'm going to start with is your morning. So your morning is, for example, if you did not get a good night of sleep the night before, think about what you did before you went to bed. 2 hours up until you went to bed. Very, very important. What you ate before you went to bed will affect your sleep. Some of us more than others. But did you eat something that was not balanced or that had a load of carbohydrates that were simple? Did you eat a big bowl of rice before you went to bed? Did you eat a big bowl of pasta before you went to bed? Did you have more carbohydrates than you had protein? Did you have any at all? Did you eat beans before you went to bed? Did you have tomato sauce? All of these things can affect how you sleep, because when we get to a place where we're going to sleep and your parasympathetic system kicks in, that's your rest and digest. When that system kicks in and you are supposed to be going into a deep sleep, if you have eaten things that are upsetting to your stomach, those things will keep you from going into a really, really deep sleep sometimes. If you've eaten something that is irritant to your digestive tract, you may not get into a really deep sleep, or you may wake up feeling really bad or groggy. And even though you may feel like you slept quote unquote hard, you may not have gotten into a sleep that was actually restful because your stomach is fighting all night. You know what I mean? So that is one example. Before you went to bed, were you looking at, and mentally and emotionally, right? And spiritually, were you looking at bad news before you went to bed? Were you reading something on social media that was upsetting or that bothered you? Were you getting notifications on your phone that triggered your memory of the thing that you need to do tomorrow or next week, and you're already in this place of thinking about things ahead of you and creating this stress? Did any of those things happen before you went to bed? Did you watch a show that got you really excited? Excuse me. Were you watching HGTV while you were going to bed, and your mind is now thinking of all the different things that you wish you could do in your house? All of these things affect us, and we think that they don't. And as resilient as the body is, as amazing as the mind is, there's so many things that can impact our ability to rest well and to get into a deep sleep. Did you drink a bunch of sugar, something sugary, before you went to bed? Did you have caffeine, in the middle of the afternoon? That will disturb your sleep pattern at night, because coffee has a half-life, which means that your body is still working that out of your system 4 hours after you've already had it. So when we're thinking about how well we are, how we feel, so many things impact that. So just take that scenario real quick. Say you did all of those things. You didn't get into a deep sleep. You wake up, you feel lethargic, you feel like you can't even get out of bed, and you feel like you need something to get you going. That's not totally uncommon, and it's not even actually, oh, you're doing something terrible with your wellness and your health. But holistically looking at this, if you did all of those things, you may be negatively affecting how you're going to perform that day. And you are going to trigger your hormones to need to be energized in some way. This will lead to things like sugar and carbohydrate cravings, because your body uses glucose as its main form and source of energy. So when we take carbohydrates in, I'll link the episode that I'm talking about with that, with blood sugar regulation below. But when you are taking in things that are affecting how you sleep, how you perform the next day, if you're not rested, how are you going to approach that day? Probably with those cravings that I spoke about. You may start your day with some coffee before you even eat anything else. So we're already setting ourselves back, because we're not fueling our bodies, we're stimulating our bodies, which we're forcing it into this state of using adrenaline. We're forcing it to go, go, go. But a battery and a spark is completely different than fuel. And sometimes we don't begin our day by fueling ourselves. So you have this rough night, You start your day with coffee, and then maybe something sugary to go with that, or maybe a bunch of sugar in your coffee. So now we're doing a couple of other things. Now we're doing a spike at the same of our blood sugar at the same time we're suppressing our appetite by having that coffee, right? So what could you do instead? Instead, you could start your day with something that has higher protein and some sort of beneficial fat. So that can be something like, whole eggs, right? 3 whole eggs. Maybe you are having some sort of complex carbohydrate with that. Fruit would be amazing here. Berries would be amazing here. Or it could be something like what I love to do, which is I make a batch of sweet potato cubes throughout the week, just roasted potatoes, and I can add that to any meal that I like. And I'm getting a complex carbohydrate. I'm getting fiber. I'm getting, a complex carb that is not going to spike my insulin, my blood sugar, right? So that's a good way to start your day. Another way would be, having something that had, and then you want to start your day with enough calories. If the first thing that you eat in the morning is going to be a light meal, let it be something that's higher on the protein side, lower on the carbohydrate side, or balanced, because your body needs carbohydrates. But the type that you use is going to affect your energy. If you have a bagel, for example, look at your typical bagel. It has about usually between 42 and 56 grams of carbohydrates. Your body, digestion begins in our mouth. Your body can break down almost all of those carbs with your saliva first thing in the morning. Your body doesn't have to do much, which means that is going to get directly into your bloodstream very quickly, spiking your insulin and then causing this crazy rise and fall that will leave you irritable, so you can't manage stress well because you're already irritated. You get frustrated because you're not thinking as sharp or as clearly as you would like to be. You just feel like someone put a battery in you and now you can face the day. But a battery and a spark is very different than fuel. So instead, let your focus first thing in the morning be fueling, because what we do first thing in the morning can be like the domino effect that affects the rest of our day. I just think that that's such a practical, immediate way that you can affect how you feel throughout the day. And don't get me wrong, eating something is better than eating nothing, but you do want to be really conscious of, did I eat any protein today? Did I have something that is actually going to help me, going to fuel me? And all of these different things are just the ways that you're going to eat every day, right? You're going to go to sleep every day. These are the lifestyle practices and the lifestyle things that you can begin to look at and that you can begin to just audit to see, how am I feeling when I eat like this? How am I feeling if I'm doing these things 2 hours before bed? Am I allowing myself to even wind down? Most people don't wind down. Most people that I know personally just crash. They've gone throughout their day. They've had the coffee, they've had the espresso middle of the day, their middle of the afternoon pick me up. They've had some sugary thing, they've had some pack of crackers, they may have eaten an apple, maybe they had a salad somewhere in there. Ultimately, what they're not doing is fueling themselves. Extremely easy to do. You have the coffee, you go through the fast food, place or whatever. If you're doing that, I would encourage you to first hydrate, making sure that, if you want to put a pinch of sea salt in your water, mineral salt, that's a great way to start so that you can get replenished. You can replenish those minerals that your body has lost throughout the night through just getting up like many of us do, or, you're about to have something that's a diuretic that's going to flush your system, flush it of liquid and hydration. It is naturally dehydrating. So you want to make sure that you are hydrating. You want to make sure that you're replenishing minerals that you're losing. You also want to make sure that you're getting some sort of protein first thing in the morning, because that is going to set your blood sugar up it's going to put you on the right path. It's going to be that first domino that is going to lead into the rest of your day. It's going to actually affect every other meal that you have after that. You can take, for example, if you're someone who wakes up and goes to the gym first thing in the morning. A lot of people do fasted cardio or fasted working out. Your body has no fuel. You need to have something. And a lot of these things we are taught because it's what other people have done. But I just want to encourage you to ask yourself, has that ever worked for you? And I don't mean, have you seen changes in the scale? I'm not talking about that. I will link the episode about why weight loss should not be your only barometer of your health and your wellness, because it is a very small piece of the pie. Everything that you're doing, even your ability to use calories wise without your body holding on to everything that it gets because it's used to being in a starvation mode, and it jacks your hormones up. It messes with, especially a woman's hormones. So you want to make sure that you're fueling yourself, that you're hydrating yourself and replenishing those minerals. You want to make sure, this is something that we all have to be conscious of. We all need to be conscious of fueling our bodies, giving it what it needs, and actually being really intentional and focused on how our body, what clues our body is giving us. Our bodies actually let us know what it needs many times if it's not hindered. And if it is not, for example, I use the coffee thing because it affects us all. And when we are running on adrenaline all day long, it's really hard to manage our stress hormones because they're in overdrive. Cortisol is up, like adrenaline is up, and we wonder why at night we can't wind down. We feel jittery, we feel agitated or irritable. I'm saying that because I've experienced all of those things, and I realized if I have coffee after 11:45 a.m., my sleep will be jacked up. I will get up several times at night. I will not feel well the next day. And the same thing goes for eating something that's really sugary before bed, or having dessert or whatever. I've learned that if I'm going to have something sweet, I need to have that more so in the afternoon. So these are just things that I've learned about my own personal body and how my body performs under stress, sleeps well. We call it sleep hygiene. Are you sleeping well? Are you sleeping deep enough? Are you getting those 8 hours? Many people are not. They're like, 8 hours? Yeah, right. But many of us don't consider that as to be, as any reason of why our body's holding on to weight. Why do we feel stressed out? Why do we feel like we are on a thin line? Because we have no margin in our life. We have no space, and we're not supporting our body with the nutrition that it needs and the fuel that it needs to handle all the different things that are going to come at us. This is not talked about enough. So many of us are talking about weight loss or talking about, that is what many people see as the goal. But if you're supporting your body, giving your body all the things that it needs, it will trust you enough to let some things go, like excess fat or all of those things actually are easier. But many times we start at the back of the line instead of starting at the front. It's like we're going through the wrong doors, essentially. And we set ourselves up for failure on so many different levels. We set ourselves up for, when I say failure, I mean deficiencies. Deficiency of sleep, deficiency of capacity and being able to handle things that life throws at us. And don't get me wrong, we all have hard times in life. I'm not saying if you're having a hard time that it's because you're not eating right. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that if you are having a hard time managing your emotions, managing your stress level, it could be because there is this whirlwind of things that your body has to constantly deal with just to make it through the day. If your body is not supported, it can't really support you in the ways that would be most beneficial, which is having the energy and being able to utilize the energy, fuel that you're giving it, and able to step up and perform in all the ways that you would like to. And I say this a lot. I'm going to say it again. I want you to be your own health advocate and a student of your body, so that then you can get into a place of knowing what is helping, what is hindering. So the next time you want to do a weight loss program, or the next time you want to build muscle, or the next time you want to deal with stress better, or all of these different things, or you just want to stink and feel good. You want to feel well. Most people are unwell. And it's so much, it's simple, but it's also a little bit more than just eating a salad. And there's so much more to uncover and unpack in all of this. And we are so individual with what our body feels good eating and what it does not. Genetics play a role in that. Heredity plays a role in that. What we're prone to, and not just that, the bare minimum that our body is not getting, it cannot rise to the occasion, and we're not going to feel well. So that is what I would encourage you to do. First, looking at the first 2 hours before you're going to bed. What are you doing? What does that look like for you? What are you eating? What time are you having caffeine? And are you replenishing minerals that your body is probably losing? Are you eating protein first thing in the morning with your coffee? Are you eating a lot of snackery and packaged foods, or are you giving your body nutrients that it needs from real whole food? And are you drinking coffee later on in the afternoon and not being able to sleep well or sleep deeply, or waking up feeling like, oh my goodness, I feel like I could sleep 18 more hours? So these are some of the things that I just want to encourage you to think about, to look at, because these have a huge impact on how we perform throughout the day, how we slept the night before, and what we ate when we got up. Big deal. So until next time, your life matters. What you do with it matters. So what will you steward well?